What's up? It's Spaniel here with Slow Haste. Welcome to the channel. Today we're talking about making beats into songs, or more specifically, how to take a pattern on a sequencer or sampler like the Octatrack and build it up and make it more song-like. This is a theme I've explored in the past a couple of times on the Digitact, and I want to show you how you can do the same thing with a box like the Octatrack. And remember, these principles really apply to any sequencer or sampler or DAW that you might be using. And before I go ahead and show you a musical sample, I want you to keep in mind that the main idea here is taking all of the components of a beat and arranging those into a song. So that's the key difference here, is that a beat is kind of everything all together. And you can play all of the parts together at the same time and call that a beat. But I want you to start thinking about your arrangements in terms of songs and how you're bringing in and out each part, how those are dynamically and melodically interacting with each other, because that's really key here, and it's a lot more simple than you might think. I think a lot of people get stuck with sequencers and their workflow in particular because it feels kind of rigid to just bring parts in and out, but that's really the key component of making a good arrangement or a composition, is using the different parts, the different melodic or rhythmic parts of a beat, and structuring them into a song. And I'm going to show you how I've done that, or started to do that, with just one pattern here on the Octatrack. So I'll play this for you, and then I'll kind of explain my thought process behind how I built up this tune. Let's get into it. Okay, so for me, this is like the first pattern of a song. It's not a full song, but to me, it's much more than a beat. And I'm going to talk about some of the methods that I've used to give this some structure past, a regular beat, if I were to just hit play and everything came on all at once. So first and foremost, we start with this sample. And I have this string sample, this guitar sample, just step locked, trig locked to play different parts of the sample to start things off. So this is that main idea that you get introduced to. And then I start to bring in different elements, different percussive elements. So we start off with the hi-hats. And this is just a straight ahead 16th note hi-hat pattern with an LFO sent to the volume to give it a little bit of a ducking effect. And I also forgot to incorporate this into the performance, but I have a little delay set up to give us some 64th notes there. But I'll keep that down for now. Oh damn, FedEx just showed up, looking out the window, and I think I'm getting a new synth delivered today. More on that next week, perhaps. Anyways, so we have this pretty simple pattern, right? The next thing I do is bring in another sample here. So this looks crazy busy, right? What I did with this sample, and it extends past this, but I have the release turned down so you can't hear the whole thing right now. But I have this all chopped up in the slice grid. So how I do that is you hold the function and you hit the AED button, which is the audio editor, to get into the slice grid. And then I believe I have it chopped up into 32 slices. Once you do that and you're in the slice menu, you can hit yes. And then I created linear locks for this particular sample. So this basically assigns samples for each step based on the amount of slices that I have created. And then I just chopped it up and took out a bunch of random steps basically to give it a choppy sound. And then I also have a delay and filter on this. So here's what it sounds like. with that main guitar sample. Where things get really fun, in my opinion, is using the cue output. And I explored this in my video last week, but this week I have the cue output being sent to the Meris Mercury 7. And this is my favorite reverb pedal of all time. It is absolutely incredible. It's versatile. It's a great, lush, realistic or unrealistic reverb sound, whatever you want it to be. I absolutely adore it. But to send something to the cue output, you hold Q and hit that track. And I'm gonna mute the main track. So this is all coming from the cue. This is the reverb. I have a shimmer setting. And on track 2, I have my through machine playing the audio from input C, which is what's coming from the reverb. And in order to get this pumping, I have an LFO. The shape is an inverse triangle wave. And here are my settings. And you can hear that pump. That's without the pump. And there's the pump. So that means everything coming through the cue, or coming back from the cue into input C, is going to have this pump. And I can send anything to the cue. And give it this amazing, lush reverb pump sound. And then change the parameters on the delay, or sorry, on the reverb. So here I got like an octave down thing, which sounds super cinematic and menacing. And again, I can have these sent to the reverb with the main track muted. So this is something that I experimented with quite a bit. And I settled on this shimmer sound because I thought it fit the ethereal vibe of the song. Anyways, let's get to the drums, because that's the most fun, right? The beat drop, that's such an integral part of a song. So once I have these built up a little bit, I have a scene set up over here to mute everything except for these two tracks. And then I can play around. Oh, and I have my bass melody coming through there a little bit too. But I can play around with percussion and bring those things in and out. And then when I go back over here, there's my percussion. And then we get here, and that's the main part of the beat, right? Like that's the beat that you could say, oh, I just made this sick beat. And then play that. And people would be like, wow, sick beat. But if you want it to be a song, all you have to do is think about what we just talked about, the arrangement and the build and the structure of all of the components and how you want those ideas to sort of lead into one another. There are different ways to approach this, of course, because when you start making a beat or start making a song, you start somewhere, right? So you could naturally say, oh, you know, I started with this guitar part. Why don't we lead in with the guitar part and then add elements as I kind of wrote the piece naturally? Or you could totally turn it on its head and say, you know what, let's start with the drums. Start with the drums. Bring in your cue that you have pumping. Slowly filter that out. Introduce other ideas. And then bring it all together. And there's no right or wrong way to do this. Once you have all the pieces of your beat, you can really just kind of go to town with experimental arrangements and, you know, keep a phone note or a notebook with, you know, some different patterns or performance tricks that you have come up with and set up different scenes with different effects and experiment sending things to different places. Again, I think this is a really good example to show on the Octatrack because of the flexibility of setting up scenes with the crossfader and being able to send effects to use as performance tactics to sort of enhance the build of an idea. But again, fundamentally, this is really about taking all of the individual pieces of a beat and structuring them and arranging them to make something more exciting than the sum of its parts. Because that's what a lot of electronic music is about, right? It's about anticipation and tension and payoff. A lot of music is about that anyway, but when music doesn't have like lyrics or vocal melody or, that immediate human connection, sometimes it's more about exploiting the emotion that is behind the instrumental. And I say exploiting in a good way, not a bad way, of course, right? Because you want to sort of manipulate the listener's thought process and take them on a journey, for lack of a better term, and get them to feel that feeling that you got when you were creating the music by taking them along with you. If you want to know more about using effects with the Octatrack or samplers and drum machines, I have a great video about using pedals where I showcase the Mercury 7 with some different samplers and drum machines. And if you're interested in learning more about my beat making process with the Octatrack and Elektron devices, there is plenty on my channel too. So what are some of your favorite songwriting methods? Let me know down in the comments how you like to take your beats and make them into songs, or how you sort of get out of a rut of making repetitive patterns with a sampler or a sequencer, because it can be really easy to do that. I like where this is going so far, and I want to take that progression and copy it to another pattern and change things up a bit, maybe introduce some new elements. Anyways, thanks as always for stopping by. I hope you enjoy whatever you got going on today. Peace.